down thy vote!
In the news, the Liberals refuse to have a full debate on their license to kill. Bill C-14 that amends the Criminal Code of Canada to allow for some people to commit what they call culpable homicide. Yes, culpable homicide. That's the first line of the bill, but they won't even allow for it to be fully debated in the public view.
We live in a culture of death. The government legalized murder, from abortion to euthanasia. Whether we like it or not, the culture of death is going on the offense. We have to defend ourselves and go on the offense. We have to fight this evil. We have to die in dignity by natural death, not dying in dignity by killing a human being by euthanasia.
On January 1st, Obama, against the consent of the United States Congress and the will of the people, will implement the death panels of the infamous Section 1233 of the Healthcare Reform Bill that were rejected by Congress at the last minute this summer. It comes in the form of a regulation in the Obamacare bill. The euthanasia provision authorizes Medicare to award doctors who offer voluntary advanced care planning as part of the annual physical examination. This group is also part of the larger World Federation of Right to Die societies. Spokesmen for the movement explained how euthanasia can be accomplished more cheaply at home. One example is, life-saving care can simply be denied to the elderly and costs will be saved. This will be painless, supposedly, if the patient is unconscious and starved to death. Starvation being one of the first methods used by the Nazi T4 killers before gassing was adopted.
On April 19th, 2012, my mother receives a lethal injection in the hospital of the Free University in Brussels.
But you had no idea?
No.
My granddad developed non-Hodgkin's lymph cancer at roughly 80 years of age. He was basically killed by the medical staff in the care home.
My mother was physically healthy. I mean, she was, yes, indeed, she was going in and out of depressions all her life, but is this a reason for euthanasia? Apparently it is.
We had a few times when people tried to put us under pressure to have her euthanized. She's just a child like every other child in our family.
So my mother, instead of
going for the palliative treatment, she said, I want euthanasia. Had there been no euthanasia in Belgium, she would not have applied, for sure.
I think it's impossible to put safeguards, because it's also impossible to know what is a terminally ill situation. In Belgium, patients are killed by euthanasia at the first diagnosis of Alzheimer or of a malignant disease of a cancer. From all the cases, only 60 to 70% were declared to the Commission. So this means that 30 to 40% of the cases of euthanasia are even not declared, and there is no control of the law.
Frank van den Bleeken is a convicted rapist and murderer serving a life sentence in Belgium. After a 3-year legal battle, he will soon be put to death. But this isn't capital punishment. This is euthanasia. Belgium has agreed to help him, quote, die with dignity, unquote, making him the first prisoner to take advantage of Belgium's rather liberal euthanasia laws. And that is what makes this case so interesting.
An obvious question is, if this is in the interests of the population, why is it so important to keep it a secret? But we already know the answer. This is not just some renegade congressman acting on his own to sneak in legislation unconstitutionally. This is Obama. As LaRouche has warned, since the November 2nd elections, Obama is now disregarding the legislative process completely. If he can't get what he wants through the Congress, he will do it by executive order, or in any way he can. Obama has crossed the line and now is an open follower of Adolf Hitler and his genocidal policies. This is the policy that was enacted under Hitler's Nazi Germany. The real question is, will we let him get away with it?
Alzheimer's is the #1 cost aside from military costs in the world.
Well, but this is actually supporting a euthanasia program to kill the senior citizens when they.
If I sign this, am I helping to kill old people, or am I helping to not kill?
Yeah, you're gonna put them down like you put down like you put down your dog.
Oh, yeah. Dude.
And it's this is like a mandatory, because they're draining the healthcare system, so we're gonna just implement a mandatory euthanasia program for terminally ill people. Birth date and signature, and so we're just supporting mandatory euthanasia to keep the healthcare costs down, to save our tax dollars.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
What a callous son of a
I think there should, of course, be empathy and respect for every student, regardless of their identity or regardless of anything that's going on in their life. And we know that the major cause of bullying in school is because of body image issues. Now, that's not to say that kids don't get bullied because of their gender identity or sexuality, but we've got programs in schools here in Victoria, the Bully Stoppers program, which does address homophobic bullying. I think you can address bullying without then going to contested gender ideology. And this is contested. I mean, people like Germaine Greer and the feminist movement do not go along at all with this. And studies that have been done of transgendered people who have had sex reassignment surgery, people who have been followed for some 20 or so years, have found that after 10 years of, from the surgery, that their suicide mortality rate was actually 20 times higher than the non-transgendered population. So I'm very concerned that here we are encouraging young people to do things to their bodies.
pedophiles are going to be the next. Transgender's been won now. They've won that battle. It's over.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Honestly?
Absolutely. It's done and dusted. We lost.
Well, don't you think
we
that
lost? By we, I mean people who actually wanted to find out what the science said, to continue to invest in things that are now unfundable, certain bits of research that don't agree with the progressive consensus, which you now can't get funding for. That consensus is...
what kind of research?
Well, so... The transgender question is complex and difficult. And, for example, Johns Hopkins doesn't do the surgeries anymore. The guy who used to run it there is a very outspoken critic of transition surgeries. It's not the best treatment pathway. They all end up killing themselves anyway. There's, by most metrics, no improvement in suicide rates. My view on this is, we're probably going to look back in 30 years and wonder how we could ever have been so cruel as to allow somebody with a psychiatric delusion to start hacking at themselves to make reality conform to their own delusions. But I'm not. But by we earlier, what I meant was people who want to be science-led on this, and instead, what the left it was there on the cover of Time magazine. The trans thing is the next civil rights frontier. They very clearly articulated. They gave us all the clues we needed to work out how they were going to fight this one, right? And we just didn't pay any attention at the time, or some people didn't. They set it up as the next gay, or the next bisexual, or the next lesbian. It's just the next frontier in the civil rights struggle.
I heard she had appendicitis. Well, I heard she went to the countryside.
Appendicitis? Oh, wait a minute. You guys are talking about abortion. Because there's no shame in it. Abortion, yeah, we do that.
On the issue of life, to me, the issue of life is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue, and it's a difficult issue because it puts in conflict two competing rights. On the one hand is the right of a woman to choose what to do with her body, which is a real right. And on the other hand is the right of an unborn human child to live. And they're in conflict, and as a policymaker, I must choose which one of these two sides takes precedence. And I've chosen to err on the side of life. Here's what I find outrageous. There has been 5 Democratic debates. The media has not asked them a single question on abortion. And on abortion, the Democrats are extremists. Why doesn't the media ask Hillary Clinton why she believes that all abortion should be legal, even on the due date of that unborn child? Why don't they ask Hillary Clinton why she believes that partial birth abortion, which is a gruesome procedure that has been outlawed in this country, she thinks that's a fundamental right? They are the extremists when it comes to the issue of abortion, and I can't wait to expose them in a general election.
The majority of Americans and the majority of women agree that abortion after 5 months, for any reason at all, is extreme. And yet, politics apparently intervened to prevent the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act from being brought to the floor for a vote. This is disappointing because what it says is that once again, politics has triumphed over principle and expediency has triumphed over courage. This is not leadership of the House. And it is on the issue of life that the hypocrisy of liberals is at its most breathtaking. Liberals believe that flies are worth protecting, but the life of an unborn child is not.
Liberals raise the A word. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. The new Liberal government is moving pretty quickly on one of their key issues, abortion. Sure, they didn't spend much time campaigning on abortion during the election, but make no mistake, abortion is a big issue for the Liberals. Abortion is available pretty easily across the country. It's legal. There's no laws restricting abortion, not even at 9 months. If you can find a doctor to abort your baby the day before your due date, that's legal in Canada and fully funded by taxpayers. The majority of abortions happen much earlier in the pregnancy, but that's the reality. Let's face that. What Minister Philpott, the media party, and abortion activists are upset about is that you can't get an abortion in every small town in Canada. Sometimes you've got to drive somewhere else. And this, they say, is wrong. But Minister Philpott wants to make sure that women in small towns aren't inconvenienced by having to go to a larger centre to get an abortion. So she's going to be pushing the provinces to increase funding for abortions. She'll push them to open clinics, maybe even private clinics, to make access even easier. Too bad she won't do the same for heart operations or hip replacements. It really shows you where Liberal priorities lie, with abortion, not life-saving or life-improving surgery. Another sign of how much Liberals value abortion, they rail against private clinics in Canada's healthcare system. They fight against private MRI clinics or surgical clinics. But they either turn a blind eye or outright champion private abortion clinics. It's telling about what they value and what they hold dear.
We had no problem with our border between 2001 and 2007, and then a centre-left government full of secular progressive pinheads got elected, and they dismantled this effective border protection policy that was in place with the usual claims. It was inhumane, it was wrong, it was immoral, only bad guys like O'Reilly would want to have such a policy in place. And what happened? We've had, in the last 4 years, before the change in government, more than 50,000 illegal immigrants arrived on over 800 boats. 1,200 people, Bill, tragically died at sea making the journey. There was a $10.3 billion budget blowout. And it's not fair to the genuine refugees, part of Australia's already very generous refugee intake. It was costing us so much money. We didn't know who these people were. And of course, we wanted to save lives. And what's more humanitarian?
Yeah, if you're floating across open water, I mean, if you're encouraging that, they're going to be like the Haitian boat people.
And that's why I think, Bill, that President Obama has got to toughen up.
All right, he's got to show. Seem like that's going to happen, but we'll see.
Up to 30 people are feared drowned in the second migrant tragedy in as many days in the Mediterranean. Amid warm weather and calm seas, more people are attempting the perilous journey in rickety boats from Libya to Italy. More than 7,000 have been rescued this week alone. In the latest disaster, at least 80 migrants were pulled to safety after their vessel overturned. As many as 30 more, though, are feared dead. On Wednesday, a large fishing boat also capsized off the Libyan coast. Over 500 people were saved, but at least 5 migrants lost their lives. More migrants have drowned in desperate efforts to reach Europe, their boat destroyed after running aground off the Greek island of Rhodes. Rescuers did their best to pluck survivors from the waves. Some 90 people have reportedly been saved. But Coast Guard said at least 3 bodies had also been recovered, those of a man, a woman and a child. Around 30 of those pulled ashore from the floating debris of their wrecked vessel have been taken to hospital. This as more distress calls were reported from other boats in difficulty. On one sinking boat in the Mediterranean, at least 20 people are said to have died.
And let me ask you exactly this. You know, in the United States, we've seen a lot of terror in France. In the United States, we had Orlando, but things seem a little bit better. What's the difference between the United States and the other countries?
Well, clearly, I think in Europe, it's the great Muslim immigration problem. They have those large communities of Muslims, many of them unemployed, many of them disenfranchised, real hotbeds, real places for radicalism to grow and grow easily within a community. And I think here in the United States, of course, almost virtually all of our Muslim population is well integrated. They're part of the communities. They abhor these kinds of things happening just as much as the rest of us do. So I'd say the starkest difference is just the nature of the immigration problem in Europe, which continues to grow.
Europeans have identified immigration and terrorism as their two main concerns, leaving other issues like the economy and unemployment in a distant third and fourth. Polling more than 30,000 people in 34 European countries and regions, the European Commission survey found that almost half, 48%, cited immigration as one of the two most important issues facing the EU. Terrorism was cited by 39% of respondents. In the same survey conducted just 18 months ago, unemployment was the main concern, followed by the economic situation throughout Europe.
Well,
Joy and mischief and laughter.
It would be more
memes.
spontaneous, let's say.
Pepe in the White House.
Would it be meaner?
It would be fantastic. It might be a little meaner, but we could do with a bit of meanness in American society. This cult of being nice all the time and not saying what we really think, not saying what's actually happening. I mean, the reason that people like me get upset about political correctness is that it kills.